So my name is Margareta Wahlstrom. I'm the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction. And my colleagues and I and many other people are working on finding practical methods to reduce the impact and the losses in disasters. Why? Because increasingly, as everyone can see looking in their own community in the world, the losses from disasters are becoming greater and disasters happen more and more often. So we have to look at social impact. You lose all your belongings, you lose your job because business go out of business when disasters happen, and lives are lost. But also the economic impact, even if you are insured, the economic impact on individuals and communities and governments are more and more severe. And this is the body that we call working for disaster risk reduction. So it's prevention of building new risk, it's reducing the existing risks that we already know, and of course it's also making sure that individuals, communities are resilient in times of disasters, because they will happen in any case. As we may be able to reduce, but still disasters will happen, and then we have to have the capacity to really recover as quickly as possible, to recoup losses, and to try to cut short the unfortunately very lengthy period of reconstruction. So, as is very obvious, this is not a job for a single individual or an institution. So it requires really an engagement by the entire community, the entire government, and all of society, including business, community groups, volunteers, government departments, sectoral departments in government. So it is not the business of only one department or ministry. It requires every ministry to look at their responsibility. So this is disaster risk reduction, and at global level we have together the first time that this became a real significant message is a very long time ago, when mainly scientists were saying, be very careful what we see in terms of the evolution of disaster risk. It's going to become a very costly and important issue for countries in the future. And why is it? Well, it's not only the hazard, the nature, it's actually how we build our societies, where we build societies, how well informed and how well prepared citizens are, the quality of our built environment, the houses. It's the understanding and planning for risks so that we can mitigate it as we go. So it may sound as a very complex thing, but in some ways it's also very simple. It's simple because we can learn from each disaster, and we have to accept that it will happen again, and next time we will be much better prepared. And I think this is sort of the simplest version of how we are better prepared for the future. So why do I do this job? Well, for many years I worked in disaster response, and I saw many big disasters and crises around the world. But I also realized that there is a pattern that repeats itself every time. Crisis, disaster, we respond with a lot of money and a lot of effort, and get to some recovery point, but as I already said, not really in a very efficient manner. And then it happens again and it happens again. So I said there has to be a different way to do this. There must be a way of be better prepared, reduce the impact, understanding the economics of disaster, but also understanding fully the risks so that we can tackle it from the risk perspective. And that's why about 10 years ago I found that there is something which is a UN office, the International Strategy for Disaster Risk Reduction in the United Nations. And this office had at that time started building very important and very encompassing partnerships. Of course, national governments, local governments, but also with social groups, science group, business community, parliamentarians, trying to touch every part of society that will have an impact on how we manage and understand risks and what we do to mitigate and prevent risk. So that's the path we are on now. Just a few months ago, in March 2015, all the countries in the world agreed on the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. It's the 15-year, very concrete plan for what are the key elements you really need to tackle if you want to reduce risk. It's practical, it's inclusive, it's completely voluntary, but it actually tells you what to do if you want to enter into this partnership. And in countries like Canada, you have your national platform for disaster risk reduction, which is a completely inclusive partnership engaging communities, authorities, your provinces, your state governments, and business, very importantly. It's a fantastic forum to engage in cooperation that has a concrete outcome and can change the reality for many communities in Canada and of course in the world.